Hello, it's Phil Thatch, and I've come downtown today with Heather, and we're going to kind of hang around and maybe do some street photography, try my hand at that a little bit. But first, I'm really hungry, and I'm going to have a hot dog at this really unusual place. It's a speakeasy in Chattanooga. It's called London Calling, and it has a secret entrance, and we'll show you how it works. Turns out that on Sunday afternoons at 1:30, London Calling is not open, but I'm still hungry, so we're going to have to go find some place for me to eat. London Calling opens at 5 on Sundays, and it's 1:30, so while we're right here at it, thought I'd show you this sparkly alley. It's the Urban Chandelier. Right behind London Calling is one of Chattanooga's decorated alleys. This one has really interesting green piping going all over the place. It's made of metal. This is the back of London Calling. It's not an entrance, but it is next. So Heather has said that we should try this Bantam and Biddy place that's right here. So I think we will. This place is kind of cool. The front of it is right on Market Street, and the back was on that alley with the green piping. Heather and I are enjoying our time here at Bantam and Biddy, and while we are doing that, Heather looked it up, and it turns out that London Calling has changed names to Unknown Caller. And last time we were here, the phone booth was red, and now it's black, so maybe those two things happen at the same time. But she looked up the menu, and they still have the hot dogs, which is what we liked about the place. Great hot dogs. While we're sitting here at Bantam and Biddy, I've been playing around with the 14 to 24 on the Z6. This is the only photo in the video with the 14 to 24. I just set the camera on the table and used single point autofocus on Heather's face and did this ultra wide shot of our table. Look at that steak and egg breakfast I'm having. And Heather's having some sort of spinach salad. Looks great. Okay, so we're going to try some street photography. I'm shooting manual with the 85 1.8, but I've got it at f5.6 and 1/250th of a second automatic ISO. And we're going to kind of wander around and see what we can find. And in focus mode, I have it in the area that will do face detect and eye detect. So I'll show you how that works a little bit later. This is the Dome building in Chattanooga, as it's called, and construction on it was completed in 1892, and in 1978 it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. I made this photograph handheld with the 85 f1.8 at f7.1 and 1/250th of a second. I walked past these cigar boxes twice before I noticed the empty cigar boxes $2 each sign, and that pushed it over the edge and it made it interesting enough to take a picture. All right, here are the focus modes for the Nikon Z6 listed on the back of the camera. There's single point, there's dynamic area, there's wide small, wide large, and auto area. Those are the focus modes, and I'll talk to you a little bit later in the video about what focus modes I used in what situations in this video. We came to this City Thread alley again, still have the 85 1.8 on, and I took a couple pictures of Heather over here with this graffiti behind her at 1.8 with it's really soft behind her, and she's cute. So I'll show those to you in a minute. Okay, so this alley artwork is called City Thread, and the 85mm lens really compresses it and makes it look cool. And I like this photograph with the rules and regulations of the alley in focus and everything else slightly out. Here's Heather at f1.8 with her pretty eyes perfectly in focus, or at least pretty close, and the graffiti in the background well out of focus. And this photograph of the man walking his dog looks like real street photography, and I like the colors. I think David Saylors might even approve. I like all the details of the man, the dog, the frisbee, and the chicken salad restaurant. Heather and I are right across the street from the Tivoli, which is fun because one of our first videos we made together doing photography, we started right here at the Tivoli making a reflection picture. But right now I'm back again trying panning blurs. Got the 85 on, I'm shooting manual with automatic ISO 1/60th of a second f10, and I think finally I got a motorcycle went by pretty slowly, and I panned with him, and I got the motorcycle really good and sharp, and the Tivoli sign behind it is blurred. It's not blurred a lot because he was going slow, but I think that one might be pretty cool. And before that, a young man walked by with a skateboard, and I asked him if I could take his picture, and he said yes. So I took his picture. This panning blur photograph turned out much better than I thought it was going to live there in the field. And there's a couple more that I liked as well, including this one of this couple on their Harley Davidson as they were going by the Tivoli Theater. They're pretty sharp in this shot, and the background is nicely blurred. And this is from the same drive-by, even sharper here, I think. The background light is a little bit tricky in this one, but I still like it a lot. This is the young man who, when I asked him if I could take his photograph, he said sure, and I just went ahead and made the shot. I wish I had switched to f1.8 for lots of bokeh. And this is the motorcycle panning blur shot that I actually talked about in the previous clip, but it may not be as good as the Harley Davidson shot that I didn't think was good at the time. This is Heather and I's second trip to the alley with the umbrellas, and my friend David Saylor's pointed out that they've added icicle lights below them, so that's new. And Houston, we have a problem. I guess somebody will come fix that. You can see where the top of the umbrella is still up there connected to a wire, but it's no longer connected to the umbrella. Of course, it was super windy yesterday. There were a bunch of storms that rolled through, so that's probably how that happened. I'm sure someone will come fix it Monday morning. Nothing special about these next two photos. They could just as easily have been made with an iPhone, I would think. But this is an artsy sign in the West Village area of downtown Chattanooga. And here's an EPB logo that was on the ground. And EPB has been providing my electricity my entire life. And recently they have added fiber optic internet to their list of services. And we were the first city in the country, Chattanooga, to offer gigabit speed internet. I think the rest of the country is catching up, but we had it first, and EPB provided it. In addition to practicing street photography and blurs, while I've got this poor man's portrait lens on the 85 1.8, I've been taking some portraits of Heather in various situations. And when I'm doing that, I'm using the Nikon Z6's eye detect autofocus, and it's working well. I'm using either, for street photography, I'm using either wide or sometimes the auto area, but for the portraits, always the auto area, which automatically turns on eye detect. Here's some photographs of Sweet Heather on Chestnut Street at f1.8. Look at the pink lights doing bokeh behind Heather, and she really likes this city parking sign, and I probably should have made this shot a little bit stopped down from f1.8 because the sign is completely out of focus. And here's one more bokeh shot of Heather on Chestnut Street. We had a nice time doing lots of portrait shots in between our street photography that day. Well, that was fun walking around the kind of 6th, 7th, and 8th and 9th Street and Cherry Market and Broad Street areas. And now we're going to go to Chattanooga Brewing. And I think I'm going to switch lenses when we get down there. We're just going to hang around there for just a few minutes, and then we're going to go someplace else. Okay, so we're at Chattanooga Brewing where they make their own beer, and usually I don't like that sort of thing, but this stuff right here, the Chestnut Street Brown Ale, is absolutely fantastic. And I switched over to the Minolta 50mm 1.4 from 1973 and made a couple of bokeh-fied photos of my beverage. Razor thin depth of field on this 50mm at 1.4, and a lot of fringing around the slightly out of focus areas on the logo of the Chattanooga Brewing. I had to take those out in Lightroom. And here's Heather in the same razor thin depth of field. Look at all the bokeh behind her, and look at her sweetness. We hung around Chattanooga Brewing for a little bit. I had one of those fantastic Chestnut Street Brown Ales. Took some pictures of the beverage itself, and I also made a couple of portraits of Heather, Bocalicious Heather portraits. And now we're going someplace else. Heather's driving. I don't really know exactly where we're going, but it's somewhere downtown to continue street photography and possibly portrait. And who knows, I've got a tripod with me. We might do some cityscapes. You never can tell with us. Here's another panning blur that turned out pretty good. Sometimes you don't have to have the whole bicycle in the frame to get an interesting photograph in a panning blur. And here is another f1.8 portrait shot of Heather, and that the bokeh balls in the background is one of those heaters that they run to keep things warm in outdoor restaurants. Here's another panning blur of a young man riding a bicycle across an intersection in downtown Chattanooga. And this next gentleman that I have a photograph of is Aaron Touchstone, and this is someone that David Sailors had run into on Thursday night and met him making photographs, and Heather and I ran into him the following Sunday, and here's a photograph that he made of us. We walked around downtown a little bit more. I had the 85 1.8 back on, took a few more photographs, not a whole lot. I really enjoyed the area that we were at first before we went to Chattanooga Brewing more than this area closer to the aquarium. And now Heather's doing some sort of a cleanse. What's that?
Head east on West 8th Street toward Market Street.
Huh.
In 600 feet, turn
What do you
left
call
onto
it?
Georgia Avenue.
It's called the Arbonne 30 Day to Healthy Living Challenge.
Oh. It's a colon cleanse.
It's not a colon
It's
cleanse.
not a colon cleanse? It's just
No.
a regular cleanse?
Well, it's like a cleanse and a detox. So it detoxes your kidneys, your liver, your colon, all that.
Oh. So Heather's not allowed to eat like human food right now. So we're going to a vegan restaurant that I learned about from a friend of mine named Dave Thompson. He and I went here one time, and the food's really good. So Heather and I are going to go check out, what's it called?
Southern Squeeze.
Southern Squeeze. There you go. We're going there now. It's on the other side of the river from downtown Chattanooga. We made this quick drive across the river only to find out for the second time today, well, the vegan place was closed. So we are going to Taco Mamacita, which we think has food that Heather can eat, and it sounds pretty good. So let's go. There's my item right there with some street corn. We are here at Taco Mamacita, and we're going to have some good grub that Heather can eat. And I have put the Minolta 50mm 1.4 back on, so there's lots of little lights hanging from the ceiling, and I'm taking lots of pictures of Heather, and she's being very patient. By this time you can tell that Heather's starting to get kind of tired because we have been walking all over downtown Chattanooga for several hours. But she was a trooper and hung in there. Plus, she was really hungry at that point. And there's my $2.75 Pabst Blue Ribbon. Yep, it's the cheapest beer on the entire menu at Taco Mamacita. That is some good-looking grub right there. There's Heather's. Okay, so at the very beginning of the video, I had the 14 to 24 on, and I took one photograph of Heather with some of our breakfast beverages in the foreground, and I used single point autofocus, which is probably my favorite autofocus method with this camera, and I put the focus point right on her face. After that, we went outside and I put on the 85mm f1.8, and I started out in auto area autofocus, which I thought might have been the best, but it actually didn't work that great because if there was an item in the foreground, sometimes it would focus on that instead of the area that I wanted it to focus on. So while I was doing street photography, I switched between wide area large and wide area small, which are both much larger than single point, but kind of function in the same or similar way. I did the motorcycle blurs and the cigar boxes, all those kind of pictures I made that way. Also, while we were outside, I took some portraits of Heather, and during that, I would open the aperture up to f1.8 with the 85 1.8, and I switched to auto area autofocus, and that opens up and turns on the face detect and eye detect autofocus. and it worked really well, grabbing Heather's eye almost every time unless I was further back, and then it would grab her face. Whenever we went indoors, I would put the Minolta 50mm f1.4 on, and that is a full manual focus lens, so none of these autofocus methods were used on the beer glass picture or the beer can picture or the pictures inside Chattanooga Brewing or inside Taco Mamacita. And coming up next, I'm going to go outside and I'll use the 50mm Minolta f1.4 at f11 manual focusing to make a blue hour photo of Taco Mamacita. Okay, so we just got done eating at Taco Mamacita. We're right in the middle of the blue hour, and I'm going to make a picture of the building real quick with this old Minolta lens. I've got it manually turned to f5.6. This parking lot's a madhouse, but I'm going to try to make it work. So I've manually turned the aperture ring to f5.6, and I'm shooting. I'm about to get run over. I'm shooting at 1/2.5 ISO 100. Come on, come on. Okay, I'm going to try another one at f11 in 2.5 seconds. Okay, one more. This one's at 2 seconds, possibly with a car driving through the whole time. Yes, that one is wild. One more. Last one, nobody's moving this time. 2 seconds, f11 on the 1973 Minolta lens. That dog will hunt. Every one of those little, the little lights in the sign, everyone's got stars coming off of it. Really small ones. Okay, let's get out of here. Okay. A few nights prior to this, Heather and I waited all the way through sunset while we were taking photographs of an antique store, and we found out that the very best photos came during the blue hour. And as we came out of Taco Mamacita, it was the blue hour, so I said, I've got to try to get a photograph of this. And then I noticed that there are 6 pointed stars off of this lens. Now most Nikon lenses will have either 7 or 9 bladed apertures, and you multiply times 2. For 7 bladed you get 14 points, and 9 bladed you get 18 points. But my friend Percy Sheely is from the Canon world, and some of their lenses have an even number of blades, and he told me that even blades will have the same number of star points as there are blades. For example, this 6-bladed lens has 6 points, and odd numbers, you multiply it by 2. I thought that was really interesting, and I looked it up, and Ken Rockwell also had an article that said the exact same thing, so it was nice to verify that, and I really am fond of this photograph that we made of Taco Mamacita with the 1973 Minolta lens. We have had quite an adventure today. 2 restaurants, 2 trips of street photography, a little bit of long exposure, blue hour photography with a 1973 lens, just all sorts of stuff, lots of fun. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Make sure to subscribe if you like the content, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.